Coming up on Tech News Today, Microsoft to ditch Windows? No, that couldn't happen, could it? Spotify's in the US. Does it suck, or is it really awesome like everyone thought? And the internet makes it hard to remember something. I don't know, we'll talk about it next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, July 14th, 2011. Tech News Today is brought to you by Hover.com. Hover is domain registration and management that's simple. Make your email address part of your personal brand with a new email address from Hover. Get yours today at tnt.hover.com. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
And joining us from Utah is not Wilfred Brimley. It's not one of the Osmonds. It's Scott Johnson.
Because that's it. That's all three. Hello, what is
It's
up, my
not
brothers?
Mitt Romney.
and sisters?
1/3 the population of Utah's here. Oh.
That's right.
How did you know Wilfred Brimley was from Utah?
Scott.
He has a huge ranch in Hurricane, Utah. It is this big, expansive place with cows and
It's as
horses.
big as
and
his
stuff.
mustache, I hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even bigger, I've heard.
Wow.
Welcome to the show, Mr. Johnson. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
We'll start off with some googly news. Google's earnings call just finished up a mere 30 or so minutes ago. And the earnings were great, if you care about that stuff. $9.02 billion in revenue. That beats the analyst expectations of just around $9 billion. They also did $2.51 billion in net income, again, beating analyst expectations. They also spent more than analysts expected them to, which I guess is not a big deal if you make all that revenue. Although, during the call, they kept going back to what they're spending money on and trying to emphasize we're being responsible, even though we're spending a lot of money. They hit it when they talked about projects, and they said, look, these self-driving cars and things, they are not distracting our focus. They are not taking away too much money. They are less than 1% of what we do. You know, we're focused on the important things. They talked about the fact that the retention is working. They're paying people more, and they had that was a big deal last earnings call because they had tossed out all these bonuses.
Yeah.
They said more of the people than ever want to work at Google, and more people than ever are staying at Google. And then they said we don't do things that we don't think will generate really big success over time. So they just hammered that over and over and over. Some other numbers. Google Plus number came out. 10 million members. This is the official Google word now. 10 million members. Over 1 billion items shared per day, and the +1 button served 2.3 million times around the web per day.
Holy crap. 10 million. What was the number the other day that people were, I mean, it was just a couple of days ago that they were saying, are we at 7 million
Yeah, Paul
yet?
Allen from Ancestry was trying to kind of back it up. I remember it was 4-point-something million for the United States.
Yeah, he was using the U.S. census data, comparing to the surnames, and he figured there'd be 10 million people by, I think, Tuesday, and then it's going to pass some crazy number later. So, but we know now it's 10 million people. And what's going on, if you guys are paying attention to the stocks, Google's up like 12.5% right now in after-hours trading.
That's crazy.
Which is huge. 12.5%. It's like $60. That's
Do you guys suppose the 10 million number was really what pushed the stock market over and made him go, whoa, look at Google?
No, it's the revenues. It's the $9.02 billion in revenue.
And they beat expectations.
And beating
That's the big one.
expectations. Huge revenue and beating already a huge number.
I think, yeah, everyone was bracing themselves for, hey, Google Plus, Google's getting a lot of really good press right now. People are sort of excited about the future, but the revenue is expected to take a hit because they're investing so much in new technology, but things look pretty good.
YouTube numbers they made a big deal out of 3 billion daily views. Talked about the royal wedding live broadcast getting 100 million. I guess that happened in the last 3 months. So that's part of this quarterly estimation. And Android activations per day, way up. 550,000 Android activations per day, according to Larry Page. Last time we got a number was back in May at Google I/O when they said it was 400,000. So it keeps rising around the world.
That is incredible.
I mean, you got a lot of. This is a worldwide number, but it's I mean,
Yeah, because
Iyaz and I were kind of.
I'm like 16,
500,000 per day.
What's 16 million? Over 16 million a month. If this is actually accurate over a span of a month, and I was like, is there that many Android devices being sold? And Tom, you were explaining that maybe it's just being activated. So if you resold an Android phone,
or if you're
other
rooting
things.
or ROMing your phone, you're starting from scratch every single
and that
time.
number to me
right?
just seemed really big.
But I don't know if that counts into here.
Well, even if that's the case, because remember they're saying 550 million activations, not sales.
Right.
So you have to take that into account. But even if that's the case, even if you take away used phones, rooted phones, reactivations,
And I mean,
The majority of
rooting
people
and ROMing
are
is-
buying new phones.
Yeah, rooting and ROMing is definitely still a low number in the total number of Android devices out there. So,
Or they're doing it every day.
yeah,
550.
every 2 hours.
it may
That's
not
rude.
might not be as mind-numbing of a number, but it's a big number, and it's continuing to go in the right direction.
So Google's going to be around for a while, if you're wondering.
Yeah.
Spotify.
Google, not dead yet.
Yeah. So if you're worried about Google,
Relax.
Spotify has finally come to the United States, and the rest of the world can stop hearing us bitch about the fact that we don't have Spotify and hate us because now we have
Spotify and Hulu. Haha.
and Netflix. Spotify's U.S. launch has 3 tiers. It's really confusing what you get, though. Now, here's the way it breaks down. You have to be invited into the free version. PC Mag talked to Spotify, and a Spotify representative told them that the free version is unlimited streaming right now, which is different than Europe, where you have 20 hours per month for the first 6 months and a limit of 5 plays per tracks. But that unlimited free version will go away within a few weeks, in a very few weeks. We don't know what that is. Some places were reporting as much as 6 months, but we don't know how long you'll get free unlimited streaming.
So 6 months is not, in fact, correct, because that is what I heard this morning, too.
I have not seen a quote from Spotify to that effect.
okay.
I have seen a quote from Spotify to PC Mag. I haven't gotten a response from Spotify about this personally. So the best we have is the quote from PC Mag saying, in a very few weeks. Now, Scott, are you even into Spotify yet?
Well, you and I were talking before the show that I had said that I was supposed to get a bunch of invites and I hadn't got them. So right before you guys called me, I did a quick check of my spam folder, just thinking maybe something snuck by. I had 8 invites in my spam folder. So people, if you think you're supposed to get an invite from somebody, check your spam on Gmail just in case if you're using Gmail, because I don't know how, but for whatever reason they went straight there. So I am at the point where I'm ready to download the client. I haven't used it yet.
Google conspiracy? They want you to use Google Music? No.
Maybe.
It's probably just that you got so many at one time from one company. I was playing with Spotify earlier. It kind of just... I've been using Grooveshark for this kind of thing, just streaming a lot of audio, but Grooveshark has some questionable legality, and Spotify's got a huge library, 15 million songs, so I found things on there that I couldn't find on Grooveshark, things like Smashing Pumpkins. That, for some reason, that band has gone after Grooveshark in the past, I guess. So I think it's kind of neat. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Before I get into what we think, we'll do a roundtable quick on that. I want to finish up the tiers. So we talked about the free tier. You can get in without an invite temporarily by creating a UK account with a UK zip code, then go to the US site, pretend like you're signing up for a premium account, and then don't finish the premium account, but continue on to Spotify, and you'll be logged in with a UK-based account in the US that allows you to have an account that is US-based, and you can change all the preferences. That's according to Gizmodo. I haven't tried it, so buyer beware, or hacker beware. But the other way to get in without an invite is to pay. So if you pay $5 for the first tier up, you get in without an invite, and you don't get any ads. There's ads playing in the free version, and eventually, when the unlimited goes away in the free version, you'll have unlimited if you're paying the $5 a month. If you pay $10 a month, you not only get unlimited and no ads, but you also get access offline, including on their mobile apps.
And higher quality stream as well, right? I think I
Is
saw
that right?
something in there
That's right. I
that
tried
said
to- I
that
tried
the
to-
highest tier is better quality.
I tried to switch it. It said you need to be a premium user to get higher quality audio.
It's kind of interesting the way that this is rolled out. It's like, do you want to pay $10 a month? We're ready for you. Or invite only for the free ad-supported version.
Well, it's a way to get people to pay.
Well, it's a way to get people to pay, but it's not a regular rollout. It usually goes the other way.
Yeah, well, they know with
You
the
get
amount
people
of
interested,
slobbering
and then you make
hype
them pay.
around Spotify that they're like, wait a minute,
I
we
guess
don't
that's
need to
true.
build up interest.
I guess that's
Totally
true.
makes a lot of sense too. I mean, people were selling Google Plus invites on eBay, so obviously, people think it's worth it to pay a little something to get into a service to check it out.
Yeah, don't buy a Spotify invite on eBay.
Yeah, don't.
Just pay for the monthly fee if you're going to
Pay
go
more than
that far.
$5,
That's just
yes.
ridiculous. All right, so Iyaz, you played around with it, and what did you think?
I like the interface. I like the integration with, well, on Mac OS 10 you can actually use the keys. I like the play button, the forward button, so it's actually integrated into there versus using like a web service like Amazon Cloud Player. That doesn't work with these buttons. So it seemed pretty robust. I mean, I don't see what the hype is, what it's about right now, because maybe I haven't tried it out long enough.
Well, from everyone I've talked to, the hype was that you got a free tier, and nobody else gave you a free tier, and that's true of Rdio. That's true of Mog here. You don't get a free tier that allows you to create playlists and do stuff, which you do in Spotify.
Then again, some of the Rdio users who are trying the free tier complain, "Oh, these ads are so ugly and awful." So it's like
it's very Pandora-like. Like 3 or 4 songs in, you get an ad, you barely notice it, and you just keep going. It just sounds like. It's not bad at all. The audio quality is really good, I think. Even the free tier was pretty good. So do
we know what the kilobytes per second is on the audio quality at all? 64-bit, 128. What do we know about the ad-supported tier?
I'm going to look.
I don't know. I mean, I listened very briefly to just a couple of quick songs, and it was certainly better than 64. I would guess somewhere at least 128, if not a little bit higher. It sounded good to me. But I don't know the number specifically.
That's plenty good for like a
total.
If you need something in your car, you're running it over your stereo or whatever. I'm already doing that over Bluetooth, so I'm already losing.
But if you have like a Sonos system and you're going to use Spotify through Sonos, then obviously you'd want a higher quality. So they definitely have people who would be like, we need the best quality tier, so we'll chip in a few more bucks.
And it has some nice iTunes integration stuff. If you've been, the only reason I use iTunes is inertia at this point, because I've got all my playlists set up in there. I've got all my music managed in there, and it's got some nice integration. They're not the first to do it, but you have playlists carried over. You have your entire iTunes library carried over, and the playlist thing is the big thing for me. If I decide to stay with Spotify, I might start managing my playlist that I manage in iTunes in Spotify instead, and I can actually use Spotify to manage my music on my mobile devices as well as on my computer.
Well, according to Wikipedia, the free stuff is around 160 kilobits per second, and the pay stuff is 320 kilobits per second.
There you go.
But they're using a version of Vorbis, so that's why it's not technically 160.
Now, a couple other ways to get in that we didn't mention. Clout had a way to get in, which you used, but that's crashed under the weight.
If you use Clout, it's a way to see your influence on Twitter, and they have these little perks every now and then. If you went in this morning, you'd see this little inbox notification saying, "Hey, look, there's something for you to check out," and it was Spotify. And I saw it all over Twitter this morning, so I went ahead and signed up. And if you got 5 people to sign up using your link, you had a premium account for free for a while. So it was kind of a neat thing, but that was, I think, crushed within about an hour or two.
And Motorola Mobility announced that they are the exclusive launch partner for mobile for Spotify. So they plan to offer their customers early access to the service, and they'll be launching a number of marketing campaigns there. So if you have a Motorola phone, Motorola tablet, might keep your eyes open there if you haven't got an invite that way as well. Let's move on to Microsoft ditching Windows. Nilay Patel, writing at thisismynext.com, referring to what Phone Senior Vice President Andy Leese said at the Worldwide Partner Conference earlier this week. We talked about this on Tuesday regarding the Xbox code, about their idea of a single ecosystem for PCs, phones, tablets, and even the TV. Nilay brought that up again and said, look, he pointed out a time frame that perfectly lines up with both the end of the Xbox 360's 10-year life cycle and the end of Windows 8 expected 3-year run would be exactly in the next 4 years, which is what Lee said. So maybe after Windows 8, the next version of Windows is the same operating system across the Xbox, your desktop, your ARM device, your tablet, and possibly even your phone, although they've said in the past that the phone is a different device and it shouldn't be part of this ecosystem. And he also points out that they've heard some sources saying that Microsoft is considering ditching the Windows brand in favor of something new when they went to this single ecosystem.
Is this? I don't know how much this ties into the word we heard not long ago that 360 games would be playable natively in Windows 8. That's an interesting foray into moving those two platforms to a more unified product. But it still, to me, seems like we're still talking about scaling a huge product like Windows, which takes a whole lot of space in terms of storage and other sort of capacities, and then you've got to shrink that down into a phone and then sort of halfway it to a game console, and it doesn't seem like that's actually making a whole lot of sense to me. It seems like what they're really saying is the underlying core technologies, maybe in the same way Apple used to tout that OS X was basically the basis of iOS. They don't really do that now, but when they were doing that, it kind of made sense. It's like, all right, well, we have this common tech. It's already strong and secure and well-worn, and so we'll just spread it out to our other products. I feel like that's probably all they're really saying here. I doubt we're going to see, you know, one OS fits all and one update fits all and that sort of thing. That just seems crazy to me.
Imagine what would have to happen at Microsoft itself, too. I mean, internally, to the way that their department structure is laid out. Who was our guest the other day who was like talking about how he had spoke to a Microsoft employee about the mobile division, and the guy was like, we don't talk to those people. I mean,
and that's a problem that Microsoft is trying to solve. Maybe this is an indication that they're actually trying to fix those issues.
Maybe so, but I mean, that is quite a restructure overhaul. I mean, pretty much everybody I know who works at Microsoft talks about, I mean, there are many perks and a lot of good things about the company, but that they really don't know most of the people they work with, and they never interact with them, and it would just, I don't know, it sounds like a big undertaking for the company.
And we got a voicemail by somebody who's wondered if the 360 would run Windows, and we were talking about how difficult it would be porting the actual basis of Windows onto a different processor, because they rewrote Windows for ARM and it runs on Intel. But if this is actually lined up with a different time, when there's a new version of the 360, and there's a new set of Windows 9 or whatever it is, they could unify that with one processor again. They don't have to keep rewriting the code for every single different processor. So it makes more sense in the long term to do something like this if they were going to do it at all, because a lot of their stuff, at least superficially, has started to look like each other. Windows Media Center influences the Zune influences Windows Phone. It's slowly, at least on the graphical user interface, it's coming together. So maybe the back end
that's that tiled overlay that we saw as part of Windows 8. I see very possibly being, and taking into account what Scott said about, I just can't see them having the exact same operating system on all these devices. That's absolutely true. You're not gonna do that. You have different requirements, but having a similar enough architecture that you could move some applications from one to the other, and that overlay for Windows 8, that sort of tile-based interface, because it's HTML5 that you put all of your applications in, means if I have an application that I've written in HTML5 for the Xbox, it's going to run on my desktop. It's going to run on Windows Phone. I see where the underlying operating system may be different, but the sort of like floating on top operating system is able to execute apps across the platforms, save them into the cloud, pick them up across platforms, and I could see them dropping the name Windows in talking about that operating system. I think Microsoft never gets rid of anything.
That's a bit like, it's not a bit like a browser. It's like a browser. I think Microsoft says we're going to call that something else. Windows will still be down there underneath, and you can still get to it and use it when you need to. The way Program Manager didn't go away until, in fact, I might have still been around in Windows XP, but it definitely is gone now in Windows 7. You could still get to Windows 2 and 3's Program Manager in Windows 98 in case you wanted it. But that was not, you didn't pay attention to that. That was not the theme anymore. I could see that being the road they go down. Yeah, to me, it's a bit like a browser. You build a robust engine for a browser, but then you're running things like Flash on top of that, or other, JavaScript or other things on top of that browser. And if they create an architecture that
except in this one, you could run a browser on it.
Right, exactly. You can do it'd be a much more complex and certainly a more system-wide kind of system. But having that infrastructure in place and being able to handle an upper layer of sort of robust application, I think that sounds great. It seems like a great way to unify those devices.
All right, I got something else great for you. We're going to take a break and thank our sponsor, Hover.com. Hover makes domain name registration simple. I did it today. I went and found that TomMerritt.ca, TomMerritt.co.uk were available. Snapped them up. Didn't have to wade through 500 different questions about this and that thing that I want. It was very fast, very simple, very cheap. They don't try to sell you a ton of services. They have a no-hold policy for customer service calls Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. You get a live person, and they've started a new service to give you personal email addresses. And this works really well, too. If you go to tnt.hover.com and put in your name, it will give you a listing of suggested email addresses. That it's really smart. Whatever code they ran, you can spell my name
with a W
if you want. That's fine. So I own all these domains, tommerritt.com, tommerritt.biz, right? So those aren't going to be available. But check it out. It looks at Tom Merritt and says, well, okay, you could have an email address that's tom@merritt.net, tom@merritt.ws, tom@tommerritt.co. And it gives you a long list of stuff that you can buy to get not only the domain, but a mailbox or maybe several mailboxes. So you can have a personalized email address that makes you look more professional, especially if you're a consultant or a freelancer, real estate agent, people who change jobs frequently. You just want to have something branded to yourself that looks professional. Check it out, tnt.hover.com. I was really impressed with how well that search did.
It's also a good time. You know, there used to be, if anything wasn't .com or maybe .net, it was like no one was really going to use it. Now everyone's all over the place.
It's the Wild West.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool to get a weird one.
Right. Let's take and we thank Hover for their support of Tech News today. Let's move on to brain tumors.
What about them?
Study published in the American Journal of Epidemiology has found that people who used a cell phone for 11 to 15 years were no more likely to develop an acoustic neuroma, that's a non-cancerous brain tumor, than people who have been using cell phones for either a shorter period of time or haven't been using cell phones at all. They looked at 2.8 million Danish adults here. Now, these are non-cancerous tumors, but they're still important to figuring out things about cancer, right?
I don't know. I keep seeing this stuff because I'm always going back and forth on this. We keep seeing stories. You're gonna have a tumor. You're not gonna have a tumor with cell phones. And this study's saying that there needs to be further studies still because they don't know how long.
Well, no, what they're saying is it's important to study because these tumors typically grow in the areas where more energy is emitted from the cell phone and absorbed by humans. So they're sort of telltale signs of seeing an effect. And as you piece these things together in this huge jigsaw puzzle of whether cell phones cause cancer, this is an important data point.
But wasn't the fact that the acoustic neuromas take a very long time for them to act kind of important on this? Because they only checked people for 11 to 15 years of cell phone usage, and the study was saying that it would take a much longer time to see the real effects of this. Like it could take multiple decades.
Yeah, I mean, 15 years you could still get an acoustic neuroma because you're using your cell phone and you got your first cell phone in 1999, let's say, and it might be, if you were part of this Dutch study, it just might not show up. But it does lead people to the conclusion that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I don't think this is going to stop the controversy, right? There's going to be this constant argument of, okay, this is the latest study that says that this is not going to cause a tumor. Now, this tumor isn't cancerous. Scott, do you think this is going to end all conversation about whether cell phones and cancer or tumors are even related?
No, but it's going to start the conversation about, am I going to get hip cancer? Because 99% of the time, my phone's right there. Like, I rarely talk on my phone. It's mostly a data device for me. And so they're not even looking at my hip, but they need to. But no, I think if anything, this will just spur on the conversation. And we know that 10 years is not a huge amount of time to get enough data to make, really firm sort of conclusions about this data. So we probably need more time. But I think this is probably a bit of good news for those who think it's, that the crowd that gets really loud about getting cancer from cell phones, they're going to be glad that that's going to be quieted down maybe just a little bit.
But this is not even a cancerous tumor. I mean, the study was about a non-cancerous tumor. So, I mean, it doesn't really say anything about a variety of other cancerous growths that you might get in your brain.
That's actually, it does say something. It doesn't say something particularly about types of cancer. Dr. Mom points out an acoustic neuroma is a tumor arising from the tissue of the 8th cranial nerve, which is what controls hearing. It's the area of the brain most likely to catch radiation from a cell phone. So if radiation is going to affect something, it's going to affect an acoustic neuroma first. And what this study shows is we didn't see an effect. Now, that doesn't mean there'll never be an effect because of what you were talking about earlier, Iyaz, that there may be longer periods needed for an effect to show up. But in 11 to 15 years, we're not seeing an effect. So like all of these studies, we all want to just leap in and say, this says the final thing. That's not the way science works. The way science works is you find these pieces of information, and over time you build confidence. And what this does is nudge us a little more towards the confidence of, well, maybe cell phones phones don't cause cancer, but we are not there yet. We're not even at the point where we can say confidence that cell phones don't cause cancer. But I think it's important to talk about these things and educate people what they do say, which is, you know what? It's pointing in the direction that maybe there's not an effect, but we're still not fully done yet. So just be patient.
All right. I'm also with Scott, too. It's like on my stomach or, at my hip when my phone is in my purse is what I'm more worried about.
Yep, and sometimes I'll absentmindedly, I think I admitted this last time I was on TNT, but I'll absentmindedly in my car just stick it under my crotch because I'm just busy or something. I'm like, oh, I got to tuck my phone in there. And I'm like, whoa, no, what are you doing?
That definitely sounds worse than my crown of cell phones, I'll say that.
Your crown of cell phones.
Wow.
I was anointed.
Yeah. It looks good, but it's probably just not a good idea.
Well, I was thinking, if I'm going to bake my brain, let's get it all around.
Yeah, you might want it to be nice.
Well, I don't know. If you believe this study, I think you're probably as fine as someone who doesn't wear a crown of phones.
Continue that fashion statement. You're
allowed.
allowed.
In all seriousness, there was another part of this study that said it didn't appear people develop their tumors preferentially on the right side of the head, where most people hold their cell phone when they talk.
Southpaws don't appreciate things like this.
Most people, not all people.
Right.
It's science. It's not trying to be prejudiced.
Saying.
Jeez, just because
Sometimes
you use the
people
devil's
do
hand
things differently.
Sinister.
The great unwashed hand.
You're so sinister with that hand.
Let's move on to something that'll calm us all down. A response to David Hyman from Netflix's opinion piece on Friday, Why Bandwidth Pricing is Anti-Competitive. This comes from Wayne Watts, Senior EVP and General Counsel at AT&T. He wrote a letter into the Wall Street Journal, and of course they took no delay in printing it, and tried to pick apart Mr. Hyman's arguments about why bandwidth pricing is anti-competitive. He said, of course, it's not surprising. He's the General Counsel of Netflix, and if Netflix uses 30% of peak hour internet traffic. Now I've heard 20. I hadn't heard 30 before. But
I heard 30 right there in that letter.
There you go. He starts by trying to. It's a good rhetorical tactic. Just try to undermine the credibility of your opponent right from the beginning. Then he goes on to say usage-based pricing is. He says Mr. Hyman says usage-based pricing is unnecessary because bandwidth is an almost unlimited resource. Well, if that's true, why did AT&T spend $10 billion on its wireline network last year? Also, another nice rhetorical trick. Kind of use one fact to imply that it's because of the other.
Right.
Even though there are lots of reasons you could spend $10 billion on your infrastructure and probably need to spend $10 billion on your infrastructure just to maintain it. So anyway, that might or might be true. Here's the paragraph where Senior EVP and General Counsel Watts brings out his big guns. He says, as data traffic on wired networks grows, requiring more investment and more bandwidth, it's only fair that those who use the most pay for what they use. Only 2% of AT&T broadband customers use 20% of the bandwidth on our network today. Usage-based pricing ensures that the vast majority of customers are not forced to subsidize the enormous data consumption of a very small minority of broadband users. Now, I'm going to, for a moment, just accept that paragraph wholesale from Mr. Watts and say that's absolutely right. That's why I think that all voice customers on AT&T's phone network should go back to usage-based pricing. Those people who talk for hours on the phone are using a lot more bandwidth on the telephone network.
Yeah, I never use my phone.
I never talk. I talk very little.
I should probably pay like $5 a month.
Almost nothing.
Yeah.
For telephone because they're using up the voice minutes. There's only so many voice minutes.
Yeah, it's not an infinite type of an area. They use it up. I can't use it.
That's right. Except that's the problem. Just like voice is bandwidth, bandwidth for the internet is not a limited amount. It's not a bucket. It's not if you use 20% of the bandwidth that means there's only 80% left for everybody else. That's not the way it works. In fact, somebody yesterday said, apparently people like Mr. Watts think that blinking routers cost more than unblinking routers.
That can be solved by taking out the little LEDs.
Yeah.
There we go.
There you
Problem
go.
solved.
Problem solved.
There we
now,
go.
I'm not saying that you can't have bandwidth congestion and you don't need to add routers and capacity, to relieve congestion, but it's not this bucket myth that they're trying to push on us with these stupid arguments and stupid numbers, and I wish they'd get over it. Yes, they have costs. They want to make more money. Charging on usage is a way to make more money. and that's fine if that's what you want to do. But don't try to tell me that it's through some sort of fairness, through some sort of like, we only have so much bandwidth in the ground, and once we've used it all up, we'll be out of bandwidth, and so we have to conserve. That's just, it's ridiculous.
And you know what? You amen to everything you said, but also I think it's really important to make that one distinction, which is if they're going to go ahead and adopt this business principle or this business model and force it on their customers, then just cop to it. It's the making up part that really gets me.
Now, and let's be clear, we are talking about wireline here, not wireless. In wireless, you do have limited spectrum to deal with. It's different than bandwidth, and there's a different issue there. So we're not confusing the two. Mr. Watts, Mr. Hyman, and myself, and all of the hosts here on TNT, we're talking about wireline, and that's a whole different thing. It just doesn't work the way they want you to believe it works to swallow this usage-based pricing. And that doesn't go just for the United States. That goes for around the world, wherever you are, wherever they're trying to force this down your throats, or have been for decades in some cases. You know, they can do it if they want, but don't let them tell you it's for a stupid reason like this.
We're on to you, Watts.
We're on to AT&T. All right, we may not remember why we're on to them, though. According to a new study that'll be published in Science, Betsy Sparrow, Jenny Liu, and Daniel Wegner published a paper that found people are recalling information less and instead can remember where to find information they've forgotten. People expect computerized information to be continuously available and actually remember things less when they think it's available in that computer. It's called transactive memory. When you need some information you don't have, you just go to the person who does. And now that we're in the computer age, computers are in that too. When you need information, if you know it's in Google, you just go to Google to find it.
I've been talking about this for years, ever since GPS started showing up and people started using it in cars. It's like nobody knows what direction north is anymore. You go to a new city, you don't look at the map, you don't even bother to have any idea of where you are because you just have a machine that can help you. And it's I mean, in most cases, believe me, it's very helpful. I'm aware of that. I've used it myself, but it's like there is a whole part of knowledge that a lot of people just don't feel the need to access anymore.
Even before that, though, with cordless phones with speed dial, I know my mom. Exactly. Like, I was like, "What number's my mom?" 2. Just push 2 long enough and it'll go. Because at some point you're like, I don't need to remember this stuff. I don't remember birthdays regularly. Let's see, I'm pretty much like a rat in a maze around this town, so I just kind of.
I remember when we didn't write down stories in books. We just sat around the fire and told them, like, you know, the bards.
Really well. Yeah.
I don't remember that, but I mean, it's the same. It's the same principle, right? Like, we don't remember these long, involved stories. We have them in books, and we remember where the book is, and we remember what book it is that tells the story, but we don't have to remember the entire story and tell it to the tribe. This is sort of the next step from that, which is we no longer have to remember all these facts if we remember, oh, well, that's stored in, you know, a search engine or on a website or in a file. They did 4 different experiments. I'm not going to go through all 4 of them, but they found that people recalled less trivia when they thought the answer was saved to a computer. People remembered erased information better than saved information, but remembered even better whether the info was saved or erased. And again, none of these experiments showed that people would forget everything. They just, it was, you know, 72% remembered the erased, or 72% remembered the saved information versus 82% who remembered the erased information.
If we all had to call each other, we would remember each other's numbers. Obviously, in your life, you've been able to remember 4 or 5 numbers at a time, and many more. But none of us know each other's numbers because we just don't have to. If you know that you don't have to, you don't bother.
Our brains are wired for survival. That is who we are as human beings. We are wired to survive, and knowing my aunt's birthday does not help me survive. Now, if she says, if you miss my birthday,
I don't know your aunt. So.
if she says, I'll shoot you in the face if you miss my thing, well, then maybe I will remember it because now my life is at stake. So the survival instinct kicks in. I don't feel like this is it. These kind of studies, they kind of blow by me because I just think, well, you know what? We are still behaving the way human beings do. It's just that we have a lot more information now that we're interested in. Thankfully, we have ways of putting it to the side and having it for later. We're still wired to just remember the stuff, the active things that make us survive every day, and I don't think that's changing with technology at all.
No, nobody's going to remember the study. You can find it online. So,
and
it's okay.
for instance, I don't have to remember the name of the next segment because I know it's written down in our document right here. Time for the Foos News.
It didn't want to play. You said it wrong.
Google's made some changes that require YouTube users to link their account with a Google account. Added to that, Google also requires its users not to use pseudonyms. Facebook has a similar deal in place. They've taken some heat for that. The Register has kind of spun this to mean that political dissidents could no longer remain anonymous and post videos on YouTube, which is a side effect. Facebook took that same criticism, and that may technically be true, but I don't know, dissidents could just register with a plausible-sounding name that isn't really theirs.
As long as it seems real.
Yeah, nothing like Iyaz Akhtar.
The profile pic seems like it's a real person. News Corp is now the subject of an FBI probe. Yes, the FBI is investigating whether employees of News Corp hacked into the phone records or private calls of 9/11 victims. The investigation was requested by New York Representative Peter King and opened on Thursday. We will see.
Hadopi, the French anti-piracy agency, just released a report saying that it has tracked 18 million internet users in France.
Ooh, wow.
According to a survey, there's only 37 million internet users in the whole country, so that's a little bit under 50% investigated. The agency has sent out 470,000 first warning emails, 20,000 second warnings, and just 10 with a third warning. Those on a third warning face a €1,500 fine and having their internet access disconnected. So that whole
It takes a lot more to get disconnected in France than it does with Comcast in Seattle. Nerdberry.net says it's confirmed with its source that RIM is working on a Media Hub set-top box called BlackBerry Cyclone. The box will have HDMI out, Wi-Fi, Netflix, YouTube, and access to network resources. According to its source, Nerdberry says the Cyclone looks like a larger version of the BlackBerry Presenter, RIM's device that allows BlackBerry users to connect to a projector wirelessly. The Cyclone is rumored for the fall.
People of India, you are interesting. Yes, in fact, you're so interesting that the Indian government wants to know all about you and what you're doing. The government has asked Google, Skype, and other social networking sites for access to communications to monitor for terrorist activity. If this sounds familiar, it is. The Indian government has asked RIM for similar access in the past.
And Skype's going to have this issue of, like, we don't have central servers. We have P2P.
It's hard to explain that to the Indian government, though, sometimes.
We just want the info.
Yeah.
Give it to us.
Sony's VP of Digital Reading, Phil Lubell, spilled some information about a new line of e-readers planned for August. The prices of these new e-readers will range from $180 to $300, so that's still way more expensive than a Nook or a Kindle. So what should we expect from these new e-book readers? Bloomberg used the very non-committal language that the new readers shall, quote, will probably be offered with hardware and software improvements.
Wow.
Wow.
I like that. I like improvements.
Sony.
Both kinds, country and Western. The tech world is so full of scandal. Scandalous. It's, you know, it's not fine and upstanding like entertainment. Anyone remember Location Gate, where iPhones and Android devices decided to track your location data?
I remember that.
You know, it was the file that Apple said, well, it's just making it easier to locate you, but fine, we'll take it out. An attorney in Korea sued Apple over that tracking and has won in a court of law. He won a whopping 1 million Korean won. Yeah, that's going to take a little bit out of Apple's hide.
Wow, you never have to work again.
That's $945 US.
Oh. Like I said.
So we could use it to
retire today.
We could buy a refurb Mac Air.
Yeah.
A couple iPads.
Yeah.
Trip. Canada, maybe? Canada trip. If you weren't aware, Microsoft runs something called the Imagine Cup, which is a technology competition open to high school and university students. Well, the Imagine Cup Twitter account alerted its followers that finalists of the competition will receive Windows Phone 7.5 Mango release. Each student will have the phone by September. Strongly implies that Mango ought to be ready by September, although it could be a pre-release version, not so sure. Either way, that tweet has been pulled, but not before it was read.
I was actually not that interested until they pulled the tweet. Because, you know, I mean, Paul Thurrott on Windows Weekly, he's got Mango. Mary Jo Foley's got Mango. Lots of people have Mango in the press and developers, so it's not that big a deal that they could figure out how to give Mango to somebody.
They're not even related. Like, you
but
get
then
the
why
phone
did they yank the post?
for buzz like this?
I don't know.
Something's up.
NASA may be done with the manned space missions for now, but the private sector is picking up. SpaceX broke ground on Wednesday at the Vandenberg Air Force Base. Back in April, SpaceX showed off plans for its ship, the Falcon Heavy, and it's expected to launch from Cape Canaveral in 2013 or 2014. Who's ready for TNT in space?
Yeah.
Anybody?
I will wave from the ground.
The vomit
Hi,
comment.
guys.
You'll Skype in from the ground.
Tom.vom.
I am waiting for the first scheduled launch.
Yeah.
From any of these companies, SpaceX or otherwise. That's the big thing that's got me unsettled. I want a launch date for one of these things. I'll feel a lot better. Let's move on to the randomizer.
Randomizer.
Bender. Bending Robot Rodriguez is a hero to anyone who watches Futurama, and now we have a real-world counterpoint. It doesn't look as good as Bender, but this robotic pipe-bending machine can bend raw steel with its mind, actually with its little bending things. But look, it turns steel pipes into look like they're putty.
What in the...
There's a bit of a Play-Doh machine.
Yeah,
thing
totally.
Here. Yeah.
But
That's
it's
cool.
metal.
It's too bad they didn't like bend the shape of Bender with that thing.
Ooh.
It came out. Like, why not just do that? You could
That
do that.
is
They probably could do that.
wild.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they could
Yeah.
have made a 3D Bender out of this thing, but
Anyway,
pretty cool.
check it out at boingboing.net. Dean Putney posted it up there. It's from Nissan, and it's a metal extruder that can bend the pipes as it comes extruding on out. So pretty cool looking stuff.
just watch and be fascinated.
I know.
On to the calendar.
Netflix has arrived on the Nintendo 3DS. I'm going to say this like it's an old-timey calendar today. Google's Photo Vine is live.
Google Photo Vine live.
That's the one that's different from Picasa, and we're not sure why.
no, we're
Pool
not.
party.
Yeah.
HP Touchpad going on sale in the UK, starting at 399 British pounds and going on sale tomorrow. Well, actually today, July 14th.
But Pool Party isn't part of Google.
It's by
Vine.
Slide.
It's Slide, same.
It's the same.
It is?
Same.
It doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense
Yeah,
at all.
but you're applying logic. You'd think that would be a
Sorry,
different project.
yeah.
No,
That's,
Wait, Pool Party's the same as what?
Pool Party's Slide, which is owned by Google. So we not only have Pool Party as photo sharing mobile, but we have Photo Vine and Picasa.
Right.
and Google Plus Photos, which might
Right.
be Picasso.
Wait, and Google just bought Instagram. No, they
No,
didn't.
that's
I just made that part up.
We got an email from Rob Adams in New Jersey. He says
New Jersey.
he installed Carbonite on his iMac and his wife's MacBook. Recently, he upgraded the hard drive to a 1 terabyte drive. His problem arose when he tried to restore it from a Carbonite backup. He noticed the download was going slow and expected that to happen. A day later, it appeared that the downloading had stopped completely. He called Comcast to explain the situation, and he asked if his connection was being throttled. I was told I was near my cap for the month, and if I went over this month or tried to download too much data, the following month my service would be suspended. So Comcast suggested I slowly download my data for the next few months.
Yeah.
I love the idea of Carbonite and would love to continue using the service, but I don't know what to do. So Comcast's solution was to just download your backups over the course of
Right,
months.
well, because they only have so many gigabytes in their bucket, Iyaz. And if he
Okay.
downloads his whole terabyte, then there won't be any gigabytes left for anybody else.
Don't be so greedy, Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you
Jeez.
just, a terabyte. Who uses a terabyte of data? That's like, I mean, 612 is...
Is a terabyte even real? That's
612
too
kilobytes
big
ought to be
to
enough
even
for
be
That's
real.
fine. Then he's just not using the right compression. Clearly.
What could he possibly have in that terabyte? That's Comcast's business to know.
This is just insane.
Anyway, this is it's only going to get worse before it gets better. But Rob, you know what? The only thing you can do is change your service to somebody else, and I don't know if you have that option. Whether you've got a decent DSL provider or if you've got some third party, look into it though. Go to DSLreports.com. I think broadbandreports.com is what they call themselves these days. Same URL, and put in your zip code and find out just exactly who is available.
If he wants to stick to
for you.
Comcast, the business
Now,
one is uncapped, right? The business.
yeah,
plans.
you could. It's much more expensive.
Right.
That is another
If
way.
you don't want to cap, apparently you have to pay a lot of money.
If you've got the ability to afford a more expensive connection, you could switch to business, and also you could go to like a Starbucks, and just sit there on their Wi-Fi.
and let Starbucks lose their Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that's an awesome
Somewhere where they have free
have no
Wi-Fi.
solution.
Yeah.
But you know, the other day we all said, this is all just going to start happening more and more, isn't it? Didn't take long for someone else to write in and say, I'm hosed.
Yeah. All right, let's thank folks who submit to our subreddit at technewstoday.reddit.com. Thanks to Return Zero, Dusty342, Grizzly82, Pete C, Draconos, Pottech, Neelam, Marco Puru, and more. Appreciate your submissions and appreciate everybody who votes things up and down there. Really helps us out in determining what to put in the show every day and what stuff you guys want to discuss. Bricks.twit.tv is still open for business. We have but 6 more TNTs after this one in the old studio, and soon we will be doing Tech News Today in the new Twit studio, just steps away from your brick, from your message. We could be seeing it every day when we come in the door on the way to work. Bricks.twit.tv is the place for you to make that happen and help us pay for chairs because we would like to sit while we do the show. Just,
standing desks are all the rage.
I know. They're all Scott Johnson.
They're better
these days.
for us, but I don't want to do
You're
it.
sitting right now, though. You're not standing.
No, I don't know what I'm doing.
He's
I'm kinda-
floating.
I got a little stool action going.
We don't
today.
need to know what he's doing.
We
When you
can't
guys say
see
it's time
below
for
there.
TNT, I feel I got to sit down for this.
Yeah. You're going to be here a while.
Yeah.
Hey, but you stand during your other shows. What are some of those?
I do. Well, I would probably point people today to the direction of our morning show. The morning stream happens every Monday through Thursday. We finished our last episode of the week today. It's myself and Brian Ibbett of Coverville fame. Many people may be familiar with that show. And we just have a really good time. It's pop culture, it's news, it's tech, it's all kinds of stuff all week. Even Tom makes an appearance on Wednesdays. It's way, way too fun for just one audience to handle. So go check it out. It's at frogpants.com/TMS.
And thanks to everybody for watching. You can find us on the web, twit.tv/TNT. Give us a call, 260-TNT-SHOW. Leave us a voicemail. Keep it under 30 seconds. Make it really smart. We might play it on the show. But we listen to all of them anyway. At least Iyaz does. TNT@twit.tv is our email address. Send us a note. Let us know how you're doing. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.